The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beyond the white silk canopy, waves rolling onto the sand in rhythmic whispers that should have felt peaceful. Instead, Natalie Chen stood at the edge of her twin sister's wedding reception, gripping a glass of untouched champagne, feeling like a shadow in a room full of light. The scar that ran from her left temple down to her jaw caught the afternoon sun. A pale reminder of the car accident that had happened when she was 12. The same accident that had killed their mother and left Natalie with more than just a physical mark. It had carved invisible lines between her and the rest of the world. Lines that somehow made people look past her as if she were fragile glass they were afraid to touch. Victoria Chen. Her twin sister glided across the marbled dance floor in a dress that cost more than Natalie's yearly rent. Everything about Victoria was perfect: her flawless skin, her confident laugh, the way she moved through the crowd of California's elite like she belonged there, because she did. Victoria had always belonged everywhere, while Natalie had learned to make herself comfortable in the corners. Their father, Richard Chen, owner of a successful import business, stood near the champagne fountain, talking to Brandon Mitchell's parents. He looked proud, his chest puffed out as he discussed the merger of two successful families. Natalie knew he loved her, but his love came wrapped in careful handling, as if her scar made her someone who needed protecting rather than someone who could stand on her own. A group of Victoria's friends passed by, their voices carrying on the ocean breeze. One of them, a woman in a rose-colored dress, glanced at Natalie and whispered something to her companion. The second woman's eyes flicked toward Natalie's scar, then away quickly, a smile of pity crossing her lips. Natalie had learned to recognize that look. It said, "How brave of her to come out in public." It said, "At least she has a nice personality." It said everything except what she wished someone would say. "You are enough exactly as you are." She moved toward the dessert table, hoping the movement would make her look occupied, less like someone standing alone with nowhere to go. The wedding planner had placed enormous white peonies everywhere, their perfume mixing with salt, air, and expensive cologne. Tables draped in cream linen held centerpieces of crystals and candles. Everything sparkled. Everything except her. Victoria appeared suddenly, her veil trailing behind her like a cloud. She placed a hand on Natalie's shoulder, her smile warm but tinged with something that felt like concern mixed with embarrassment. "Nat, are you okay over here by yourself?" Victoria asked, her voice low. "I can have one of Brandon's cousins come talk to you if you want company." Natalie forced a smile. "I am fine, Vic. This is your day. Go enjoy it." Victoria hesitated, her perfectly manicured fingers adjusting the neckline of her dress. "I just want you to feel included. I know these events can be hard for you." There it was. That phrase, "hard for you?" As if Natalie's existence was a series of obstacles to overcome rather than a life being lived. "I am fine," Natalie repeated. Keeping her voice steady, Victoria squeezed her shoulder once more before drifting back toward her new husband, who waited with open arms and a smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. They looked like they had stepped out of a magazine, the kind of couple that made other people believe in fairy tales. Natalie took a sip of champagne, the bubbles sharp against her tongue. She had thought about not coming today, had almost called Victoria last week to make up an excuse. But this was her twin sister, her other half. Even if that half felt like it belonged to a different world now. The reception continued around her. A jazz band played smooth melodies under the canopy. Waiters in crisp black vests carried trays of appetizers that looked like tiny works of art. Laughter bubbled up from clusters of guests who knew each other from country clubs and business deals. Natalie recognized some faces from family gatherings over the years, people who had watched her grow up, who remembered her before the accident and treated her differently after. She was about to slip away to the beach, to find a quiet spot where she could breathe without feeling observed. When the energy in the room shifted, it happened the way a sudden wind changes the direction of smoke. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Heads turned toward the entrance of the reception area. Even the band seemed to play a little softer, as if making room for something unexpected. A man walked through the open archway that led from the parking area to the beach reception. He moved with a calm certainty that made people step aside without him having to ask. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, the jacket open over a white shirt with no tie. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he had driven with the windows down. His eyes, a striking green even from a distance, scanned the crowd with purpose. Natalie felt her breath catch. She knew that face. She knew those eyes. They had stared back at her from her phone screen countless times over the past 6 months. During late-night video calls when the rest of the world was asleep, Owen Sterling? He was here. He was actually here. Their eyes met across the crowd, and everything else fell away. The music, the whispers, the ocean, all of it faded into background noise as Owen walked directly toward her, his gaze never leaving hers. People moved aside, confusion and curiosity rippling through the guests like stones dropped in still water. Victoria turned from her conversation, her eyes widening. Richard Chen's mouth opened slightly in surprise, but Owen did not look at any of them. He walked straight to Natalie, stopped in front of her, and smiled, the kind of smile that reached all the way to his eyes. "Sorry I am late," he said, his voice warm and steady. Traffic from the city was terrible. Natalie could not speak. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This could not be real. Owen reached out and gently took the champagne glass from her trembling hand, setting it on the nearby table. Then he offered her his arm, his eyes asking a question without words. She took it, her hand resting in the crook of his elbow, and felt the entire wedding shift beneath her feet. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the wedding reception like wildfire through dry grass. Natalie could feel every pair of eyes locked on her and Owen, could sense the questions forming in the minds of guests who had barely noticed her existence 5 minutes ago. Owen kept his hand over hers where it rested on his arm, a gentle pressure that steadied her racing heart. He looked down at her with such warmth that for a moment she forgot they had an audience of 200 people watching their every move. "You look beautiful," he said quietly, and the way he said it made her believe him. Victoria appeared at their side, her perfect smile flickering with confusion. "Natalie, I did not know you were bringing someone." Her eyes swept over Owen, taking in the expensive suit, the confident posture, the unmistakable air of success that clung to him like cologne. "I am Victoria the bride. And you are?" Owen extended his free hand, keeping Natalie close with the other. "Owen Sterling. It is a pleasure to meet you, Victoria. Natalie has told me a lot about you." Victoria shook his hand, but her eyes had gone sharp, calculating. Natalie knew that look. Her sister was trying to place him, trying to figure out how someone like Owen fit into Natalie's world. Because in Victoria's mind, Natalie's world was small, limited, safe. "Sterling," Victoria repeated, her voice brightening with recognition. "Not the Sterling who founded Tech Vista Solutions?" Owen's smile remained warm, but gave nothing away. Guilty. The color rose in Victoria's cheeks. Even she, who had married into wealth, knew that name. Tech Vista Solutions had revolutionized cloud computing 3 years ago. The company was worth billions. Owen Sterling was not just successful. He was the kind of successful that made business magazines write cover stories. "I had no idea Natalie knew you," Victoria said, and there was something in her voice that made Natalie's chest tighten. Surprise, yes, but also a hint of disbelief, as if the idea of her sister knowing someone like Owen was impossible to process. "We have been talking for about 6 months now," Owen said icily. "Natalie is remarkable. I am lucky she gave me a chance." Brandon Mitchell joined them, his arms sliding around Victoria's waist. He extended his hand to Owen with the practiced charm of someone used to networking. "Brandon Mitchell. Congratulations on the Tech Vista expansion into Asia. Read about it in the journal last month." As the men shook hands and exchanged pleasantries, Natalie felt the weight of stares intensifying. Across the reception, Richard Chen was making his way toward them, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. Groups of guests had stopped pretending to have their own conversations and were openly watching now. Owen must have sensed her discomfort because he turned slightly, creating a small barrier between her and the crowd with his body. "Would you like to get some air?" he asked softly. Before she could answer, her father arrived, his face flushed. "Natalie, sweetheart, I did not realize you were bringing a guest. You should have told me." I did not know for sure that he was coming, Natalie admitted, finding her voice. Owen, this is my father, Richard Chen. The two men shook hands, and Natalie watched her father's demeanor shift as he recognized the name, just as Victoria had. Suddenly, the daughter he had been worried about all evening was standing next to one of the most successful entrepreneurs in California, Mr. Chen. You have an extraordinary daughter, Owen said. And something in the way he said it made Natalie's throat tighten. I hope you do not mind me crashing the celebration. Richard Chen laughed, but it sounded forced. Of course not. Of course not. Any friend of Natalie's is welcome. He paused, glancing between them. How exactly did you two meet? Owen looked at Natalie, giving her the choice of how much to share. She took a breath, feeling his steady presence beside her like an anchor. We met online, she said simply. We have been talking for months. She waited for the judgment, the concern, the warnings about internet strangers. But her father just nodded, still processing the fact that his scarred, quiet daughter had somehow connected with Owen Sterling. Victoria touched her father's arm. Dad, we should probably get back to the guests. The cake cutting is soon. She looked at Owen with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. You will stay for that, will not you? If Natalie wants me to, Owen replied, looking down at her. Natalie nodded, not trusting her voice, as Victoria and their father drifted back toward the main celebration. Owen guided Natalie toward the edge of the reception area where the manicured lawn met the natural beach grass. The ocean stretched before them, vast and calming. I cannot believe you came, Natalie whispered, once they were alone. I thought when you said you would, it was just something nice to say. Owen turned to face her fully, his green eyes serious. Natalie, I have never said anything to you that I did not mean. Not once in 6 months. She felt tears threatening and blinked them back. Everyone is staring. Let them stare, he said gently. Do you know what I see when I look at you? She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. I see someone brave enough to keep creating beautiful things, even when the world tried to make her feel broken. I see someone who talks about architecture and design with such passion that I found myself watching documentaries about buildings just so I could understand what you loved about them. I see someone who makes me laugh, who challenges my thinking, who sends me photos of sunrises because she knows I work too early and might miss them. He paused, his hand coming up to gently touch her cheek, his thumb tracing a line near, but not on her scar. I see someone I have been falling for since the first conversation we had. A tear slipped down Natalie's cheek before she could stop it. You never asked about my face. In all our video calls, you never asked about the scar. Because it is just part of you, Owen said simply. Like your eyes are brown, like you bite your lip when you are thinking. It is part of what makes you Natalie, but it is not what defines you. She laughed, the sound breaking through the emotion in her chest. You are really here. I am really here, he confirmed. And I am not going anywhere unless you want me to. Behind them, the band began playing a slower song. Couples moved onto the dance floor, swaying under the canopy. Owen held out his hand. Dance with me. Natalie hesitated. I have not danced in years. Not since before the accident. Then we will figure it out together, Owen said. She placed her hand in his and let him lead her back toward the reception. But not onto the main dance floor, where Victoria and Brandon swayed in the spotlight. Instead, Owen found a quieter corner where the music reached them softly. Where they could move without being the center of attention, he pulled her close. One hand settling at her waist, the other holding hers gently. They swayed together, finding their rhythm, and Natalie felt something inside her chest crack open. Not with pain, but with the kind of hope she had stopped letting herself feel. Thank you for coming, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank you for sending me the address, he replied. Thank you for trusting me enough to let me be here. As they danced, Natalie caught glimpses of her sister watching them from across the reception. Victoria's expression was complicated. Layers of surprise and something that might have been jealousy mixing with what looked like the first real seeing of her twin sister in years. The song ended. But Owen did not let go immediately. He looked down at Natalie with such tenderness that she felt seen in a way she never had before. Not as the girl with the scar, not as the broken one, not as someone to pity or protect, just as Natalie, whole, worthy, and wanted exactly as she was. "Ready for cake?" Owen asked with a smile. She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Ready." As they walked back toward the celebration together, Natalie realized something had shifted. Not just in how others saw her, though that was changing too, but in how she saw herself. For the first time since the accident, she felt like she was stepping out of the shadows and into the light. The cake-cutting ceremony drew the entire reception into a tight circle around Victoria and Brandon. The towering 5-tier creation stood decorated with sugar, flowers, and gold leaf. A masterpiece that probably cost more than Natalie made in 3 months. Camera flashes lit up the evening as the perfect couple made their perfect cut, feeding each other bites while guests applauded. Natalie stood beside Owen at the back of the crowd, feeling his presence like a shield against the world, but even with him there, she could not ignore the looks. The whispers had grown louder since their dance, speculation running wild through the reception about who Owen was and why he was with her. "People keep staring at us," she murmured. Owen leaned down slightly, his voice warm near her ear. "They are staring because they are realizing they missed something important. They overlooked someone extraordinary, and now they are seeing their mistake." Before she could respond, Victoria appeared through the crowd, her smile bright, but her eyes sharp. She had removed her veil, and her hair fell in perfect waves around her shoulders. "Nat, can I talk to you for a second?" Victoria asked, her gaze flicking to Owen. "Sister to sister?" Owen squeezed Natalie's hand gently before releasing it. "I will get us some coffee," he said, giving her space. As soon as he walked away, Victoria pulled Natalie toward a quieter corner near the beach, away from the main reception. The sun had begun setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected off the water. "Okay, what is really going on?" Victoria asked, her voice dropping its polite tone. "Owen Sterling. The Owen Sterling. How did this happen?" Natalie felt her defenses rise. "I told you. We met online and have been talking for months. But you never mentioned him," Victoria pressed. "Not once. Not when I asked if you were seeing anyone, not during any of our calls about the wedding. Why would you keep something like this secret?" "Because I did not think it was real," Natalie said honestly. "Because I thought maybe he would realize he could do better. Because I am used to being invisible, Vic, even to you." Victoria's face softened with what looked like genuine hurt. "That is not fair, Nat. I've always been there for you." "Have you?" The words came out sharper than Natalie intended, but years of swallowed feelings were rising to the surface. "Or have you been there for the version of me you think needs saving? The broken little sister who needs protection and pity?" "I never pitied you," Victoria said, but her voice wavered. "You absolutely did," Natalie replied, and she was surprised by how steady her voice had become. "You and Dad and everyone else. After the accident, I stopped being Natalie and became the girl with the scar. The one we have to be careful around. The one who gets the easy assignments and the gentle treatment and the sympathy smiles." Victoria crossed her arms, her wedding dress rustling in the ocean breeze. "We were trying to help you. The accident changed everything. You dropped out of design school. You barely left your apartment for a year. We were worried about you." "I know," Natalie said, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "And I appreciate that you cared. But somewhere along the way, you all decided I was fragile, and you never asked if I was ready to be strong again." A commotion near the reception made them both turn. Richard Chen was talking animatedly with Owen, his hands gesturing in that way he did when he was excited about a business opportunity. Other guests had gathered around, drawn by the magnetic pull of success and wealth. Victoria watched for a moment before turning back to Natalie. "Is it serious? With him?" "I do not know what it is yet," Natalie admitted. "But it feels real. He talks to me like I matter. Not like I am something broken that needs fixing, but like I am someone worth knowing." "You are worth knowing," Victoria said quietly. "Then why did you not put me in the wedding party?" The question escaped before Natalie could stop it. "You said I was your maid of honor and spirit, but you did not want me standing up there with you. Was it because of how I look?" Because having your scarred sister in the photos would ruin the aesthetic? Victoria's face went pale. Natalie, that is not why. I just thought the attention would make you uncomfortable. You always said you hated being the center of focus. I hate being stared at with pity, Natalie corrected. That is different from being included. You made that choice for me without asking what I wanted. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the sound of waves and distant laughter from the reception. Victoria looked down at her hands, at the enormous diamond ring that caught the fading sunlight. I am sorry, she finally said, and her voice cracked slightly. I thought I was protecting you. But maybe I was just making it easier on myself. Easier not to think about how you might feel. Easier to pretend everything was fine if I just kept you comfortable and safe in the background. Natalie felt the anger drain away, replaced by a deep sadness. We used to tell each other everything, Vic. When did we stop being twins and start being strangers? When I did not know how to talk to you anymore, Victoria admitted. After the accident, you were in so much pain, and I did not know how to help. So I just kept trying to make things easier, and I guess somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my equal and started seeing you as someone I needed to take care of. Before Natalie could respond, Owen appeared at her side, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He seemed to sense the tension and offered a gentle smile. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but your father's asking for you both. Something about speeches. Victoria nodded, wiping at her eyes carefully so her makeup would not smudge. We should get back. She looked at Natalie with an expression that held years of complicated love and misunderstanding. Can we talk more later? Really talk? Yeah, Natalie said. We can talk. As Victoria walked back toward the reception, Owen handed Natalie her coffee and studied her face. Are you okay? I think so, she said. That needed to happen. They walked back together, and Natalie noticed something had shifted in how people looked at her. The pity had been replaced by curiosity, even a grudging respect. Owen Sterling's presence had rewritten the narrative, forced people to reconsider their assumptions about who she was. But as they rejoined the celebration, Natalie realized something important. Owen had not changed her. He had not fixed her or completed her or made her whole. What he had done was see her clearly. Without the filters of pity or fear, and in being seen that way, she had remembered how to see herself. The speeches began. Brandon's best man telling embarrassing stories that made everyone laugh. Richard Chen spoke about watching his daughter grow into a beautiful woman, his voice thick with emotion. And then Victoria stood, microphone in hand, looking out over the crowd. I want to thank everyone for being here today, she began, her voice steady. Then her eyes found Natalie in the crowd, especially my twin sister, Natalie. We have not always understood each other lately, but she has always been my other half. The brave one, the creative one, the one who sees beauty in places I never think to look. She paused, her voice catching. I love you, Nat. Thank you for being here. Natalie felt tears spill over, and Owen's hand found hers, his thumb brushing across her knuckles, as the reception continued into the evening. With dancing and laughter and the kind of joy that weddings bring, Natalie felt something settle in her chest. Not everything was fixed. She and Victoria had years of misunderstanding to work through. Her father still looked at her like she might break. The world would still judge her for her scar. But she had found someone who saw past all of that. And more importantly, she had found her own voice again. As the night grew darker and stars appeared above the ocean, Owen pulled her onto the dance floor once more. The band played something slow and sweet, and couples swayed together under strings of lights that turned the reception into something magical. Thank you for today, Natalie whispered against his chest. For coming. For being here. For seeing me. Owen pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I have a confession to make, her heart skipped. What? When you sent me the address and I realized I could actually meet you, I was terrified. What if I was not what you expected? What if meeting in person ruined what we had built online? Natalie smiled through her tears, and in the moment I walked in and saw you standing there, looking so beautiful and so scared, I knew that what we have is even more real than I hoped. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. I came today because you asked me to, but I am staying because I cannot imagine being anywhere else. She stood on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet, not caring who saw or what they thought. Because for the first time in years, Natalie Chen was not hiding in the shadows. She was standing in the light, exactly where she belonged, as they pulled apart. Owen smiled and asked, "So what happens now?" Natalie looked around at the wedding, at her sister dancing with her new husband, at her father watching them with wonder in his eyes, at the ocean stretching endlessly beyond the reception. She said, "We start our own story," with Owen's hand in hers. She finally believed that her story could have a happy ending after all. The end.